Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Today I am extremely excited to bring you the Supafly Flipmode version 3 frame, which arrived in the mail today. Now this is a UK based designer. It is designed by Stephen Wright, who has been refining this frame pretty much over the last 2 years, and he has come out with 3 different iterations so far. And I think he's going to probably settle on this as the final iteration of this design, because pretty much everything that could have been squeezed out of this frame has been done. And I think he has achieved, exactly what he wanted to set out to achieve. And it is a brilliant frame to fly. It is super durable. All the kinks have been worked out of it. And what can I say? So, what I want to do today is pretty much show you the differences between the 3 different iterations. Yes, because I have had them all. This is my favorite frame to fly. I have said it before. I have 7 premium frames, ranging from anything from Jep RC all the way up to Armatan. And I have settled on this frame as my daily flyer. I will not swap it for anything that is out there at the moment, even though other people are starting to pick up on the design elements of this style of frame and incorporating it into their own designs. And that basically just sets testament and proof that this concept is a brilliant concept for anybody who is into freestyle carbon fiber quadcopters. This is a 5-inch frame. It has got 4mm arms. It's got a 2mm bottom plate, a 2.9mm, well, let's say, let's call it 3mm bottom, well, that's like the bottom, big bottom plate, and it's got a 2mm top plate. It uses a very cool concept for hooking the carbon fiber in like the camera cage on the front, which is also 3mm on the version 3. On the version 2, it used to be 2mm. That has been increased, and it just provides better durability because that's the first point of impact on this type of frame. So it uses the slanted camera mount design, which first started off with the sort of chameleon design with their aluminium cage design. That has been obviously put into carbon fiber now and is joined to the bottom plate using how do you call this? I wouldn't say dowels, but yeah, sort of dowel style, similar to what is used in woodworking. This has proven to be a quite durable and robust solution for this kind of frame. And it resists impact, quite heavy impact from the front end, as all of the energy from the impact is transmitted down through the bottom, and the whole construction of the frame, will dampen that impact, and that translates into durability at the end of the day. Okay, so why don't I've already mentioned that there's a slight difference between the camera plates, so I'll start off with showing you those. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way so you get a clearer view of what is happening. Okay, I'll just get this stuff in here, move this sort of out of the way. Right, so these are the camera cage plates. You can see they're very, very similar between the version 1 and version 2. Let me grab this and pull you down here a bit. This is the version 1 plate. The version 1 and version 2 are very similar, so I'm not going to show you the version 2. The only thing they changed was the thickness on the version 2 is the 3mm. Like I said, the version 3 is also 3mm. But it's not very apparent when you look at them like that, the differences, but I will put them on top of each other so you can see, and I'll line up the holes so you can see the difference. So the version 3 is on the top now. I'm going to flip it over. So the version 3 is on the bottom, and you can see where the differences are. If I get that angle correct, you can see that right here they've extended the version 3 plate a little bit more, You see the version 2 plate is shorter. The cutouts for the these dowels are much more robust on the version 3. They've changed the camera angle holes, so you've got a little bit more flexibility in terms of how the camera rotates inside the cage. Okay, and you can see that this rear part here is much more robust on the version 3 than on the version 2. That will allow a little bit more stiffness. You know, when you on frontal impact, it will just allow this little extra little bit here will allow less flex in the whole frame. So it is a little bit more robust. You can see this little lip here was also one of the areas that had issues. Although it wasn't a very critical part, they've also extended that dowel to give it a little bit more robustness. Now the interesting thing is their new carbon you know, CNC supplier who cuts these frames has gone to the effort to actually use a 1mm bit to cut these holes. Previously they used a 3mm, which gave it this sort of dog bone shape here that you can see, and that just gave a little bit more weakness towards the edge of the carbon there, that dog bone, you know. So now you've got a little bit extra material there. There's also more material around the screw hole on that little part there. That's where the bottom standoff goes between the two things. So those are the differences between the two plates, the two camera plates here, version 1, version 3. Okay, let's move on to the bottom plate, which is where most of the differences are in this new iteration. Okay, the main difference that you will see is when you put them on top of each other and line up the holes, like so. The new version 3, which is at the bottom now, is actually 2mm longer on the body. So they've actually extended it from this part forward, from this hole forward. They've extended the front section of the quad by 2mm. So the whole thing is moved forward. Yeah. They have I'll get rid of the top plate. Now this is the old one. So this is version 1, which is a 2mm plate. Now you've got a 3mm plate. So they have changed that to give it a little bit more rigidity, because on the version 1 frame iteration, it was noticed that there's a weak point just at the front here on this curve where these little dog bones are. That was a weak structural point. On frontal impact, it would have the tendency to delaminate slightly in that area. As you can see over there, there's a slight delamination. So this is my second bottom plate. So in 18 or 19 months, I have broken 2 bottom plates in this fashion. This one's not actually broken, it can still be used, it's just slightly delaminated there. So they have resolved that issue by using this 1mm cutout, 1mm bit. You no longer get that dog bone, and that area is just slightly stronger. Having this front end moving a little bit more forward, in conjunction with the bigger lip on these cutouts, and a much beefier cutout at the top, allows for less flex, and thus that area of concern, if the frame is properly constructed and tight, will no longer be an issue. Okay, so that is a very welcome feature. Another thing that they've changed on the bottom plate, as you can see, they've beefed up the screw holes a little bit by not removing as much material from the outer edge of the screws here. They've also added another set of zip tie holes, which are slightly at an angle, that will allow you to mount your VTX antenna if you do not want to use the TPU antenna mount that comes with this frame. The main construction of the frame is done by 8 bolts in the middle. Okay, so they use press fit nuts for the stack screws, which mount through the arm. The arms butt together like most of these forearm frames do, and you have a press fit nut in there, which works very, very well. I know that the dimensions of these screws hasn't changed, so the fit is tight. There is no risk of the actual, the press fit nut slipping in the carbon. It grabs on with its teeth, and it is very, very solid, which allows you to tighten it very, very well. So another different thing between the two bottom plates, if you'll notice, the version 1 has this cutout facing forward, and the version 3 and 2 as well. The version 3 has it facing backward. So that's one of the things you will notice. The other thing is obviously the 1mm bit that they use to cut out these cage dowels here is also another difference. Yeah. So moving on to the top plate. That's the version 3. This is the version 1. I have got this. Obviously, this has got the included foam pad that comes on there. The main differences between these plates are that the version 3 now has all of the screws flush mount. So they are flush mount with the top of the frame. It's a top mount battery. So on the version 1, the little screw heads would potentially damage your battery. On the version 2, the rear screws were still button heads, and only the front 3 were flush. Now they're all flush. Okay. Also, the design of the cutouts in the middle of the frame have changed from the version 1 to the version 3. He now uses this triangular design with this arrow pointy thing, which sort of ties in with the external design of the rear of the frame much better. He has also included slots for a second strap, which is a welcome feature, because on the first version with the GoPro mounted here, the battery would sit a little bit further back and the strap would be on the front half of the battery. I had plenty of ejections on this first version. As you can see, that's where the camera mounts. On the top plate, they used a 2mm bit to cut out the cutouts for the camera cage instead of the 1mm bit. I don't know why that was. Maybe it was an oversight, or maybe it was just to save some time. Okay, the top plate is also 2mm longer towards the front and about 1mm towards the back. So the distance between these screws and the front screw has increased slightly, just as on the bottom frame. Now let's have a look and see how these two parts match up in terms of their design. So I'm going to match them up with their holes here, and you can see that they match absolutely perfectly. So the design, the attention to detail on the design between the two plates shows. They match up perfectly. It's almost like they were almost cut on top of each other. Another interesting thing on the top plate is towards the front of the frame. Let me just put these more or less together. You can see on the version 1, which is on top, these holes, they had a little recessed cutout. That no longer exists. It is a straight line there. So there's more material there. And they've also beefed up this section where this hole is for the cage. They've also added a little curve there, which leaves more material on the top frame, on the top plate, for where that front cage sits. So it just makes it a little bit more, a little bit beefier. Okay. So another difference that you'll notice on my built one, this is the version 2. They have changed the cutout pattern in the middle of the bottom plate. They've left it, this triangular style rather than this rounded, sort of heart-shaped, almost heart-shaped design on the front plate. So that's another difference between the two. These are non-functional differences. They are just so that Stephen, when he's packing these frames up, he knows exactly which are the version 2 and which are the version 3 frames. And that you can see that design has carried from version 1 and version 2. So version 3 is now slightly different. That's how you can tell what iteration frame you have. Overall, I mean, I have been flying this frame for 19 months, like I said. I am now on, this one is my version 2, which I built maybe 2.5 months ago. This has been my daily flyer. I fly it every time I go out, and I've hit it pretty hard. I don't do a lot of bando flying, but I do a lot of park flying and flying between trees and stuff. And I can tell you, I have hit a fair bit of trees with this bad boy, and as you can see, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the frame. I have no issues with delamination on the bottom here. The front camera cage, you can see there, is very, very robust. There's no delamination of the carbon fiber so far. The only thing that did happen to me was my flush mount screws came out because I didn't Loctite them. So I have, button heads instead, which is okay because I'm running old batteries anyway. I don't mind if they get a little bit more destroyed than they already are. You can see the construction of the front. We have 3 standoffs holding this camera cage together. This is a micro camera in here, but a normal mini camera will also fit in the exact same way. I designed a mount that leaves my lens, the micro lens, at the same, the same distance from the front cage as a mini camera. So your camera lens on a mini camera will also sit fully inside this curvature of the front cage and be very, very well protected. In addition to having nice strong carbon, you can also buy a bando kit for this. I have it. You can see on my arms I have these TPU protections. They are very, very well designed. They slide onto the arm so that you get a soft mount under your motor, and you also get protection underneath. So you can see that the screws will tighten into this, so the whole thing just slides in. It's brilliant. It gives perfect cover for the ends of the arms, and is also flexible enough to not interfere with the motors, and gives a nice protection there on the motors. As you can see on the version 1 of this frame, I mentioned before that I've broken 3 bottom plates, and after about 15 months of flying with this one, I ended up breaking an arm. The important thing to note is I probably broke this arm 1 month before I actually noticed it. I did notice that it was flying a little bit worse, and I had more jello in my GoPro, which was a hint towards something being wrong, but it never actually separated from the frame. In order for it to separate, that was me after I had already taken it apart, and I was literally, I could have super glued it and it would have been fine, but I was literally here for like a good minute, bending it backwards and forwards, trying to get these fibers to break. So the carbon that is used on this version is very similar to the one on the new version 3, although they are different suppliers. I can feel that they're exactly the same. They're super stiff, but they also, I can see that flex in them. That is the same sort of flex from the previous version of the carbon. So yeah, in my opinion, there are 2 extreme different qualities of carbon. There's this quality of carbon, and there's the super brittle quality of carbon. Although they're both marketed with the same name, there's a different composition of the resin that they use. So this is the sort of non-brittle style. This will delaminate rather than snap. So like for example, JEP RC, the carbon fiber that they use is of the brittle variety, and I have literally, when you break something on a JEP RC frame, 9 times out of 10 it will be a pure snap, and sometimes it doesn't even take a lot of force. It just happens to be hit at that angle that will just snap the carbon all the way through in one go. That doesn't happen on these frames. This frame has the tendency to delaminate rather than snap, which is a good thing. So it's slightly more flexible and is way more durable than the other variety. Okay, so the arm design, I didn't mention anything about the arms because nothing has changed on the arm design. They are absolutely identical to the previous 2 iterations, because that component was nailed perfectly on the first try. When you buy this frame, you used to have 3 options for hardware. You had aluminium 7075, steel, and titanium. Stephen has decided to get rid of the aluminium hardware all together, except for the standoffs, obviously. So when you purchase this, you now have two options, titanium and steel. The steel version weighs 119 grams all up, with all of the hardware and standoffs, and the titanium version weighs in at 114 grams, so 5 grams lighter than the steel version. You will also get super useful assembly instructions. These are actually really cool. I like the way it's laid out, and it gives you a description and all of the hardware that you need to build the frame. It's double-sided. It shows you with detail how to do the camera cage, how to do the top plate, how to set it in, how to do the rubber grommet, and which screws you need for the flush. Even tells you where to stick your foam. Isn't that brilliant? Really, really like this. In terms of packaging, it comes with very minimalistic packaging, which is to be expected, because that is one of the ways to keep the cost down and pass the savings on to you. There are no fancy boxes with the Supafly Flipmode, only the juicy bits that really matter to you. I'm really, really happy with how this has turned out. I will be building version 3 shortly. As you can see, I've acquired some second-hand Supafly motors. These are Brother Hobby R5 returners, and they have been branded by Steven with the Supafly logo on there. And they come in two varieties, 2306 2450 kV and 2306 2650 kV for the racers. These are more geared towards freestyle. On the Supafly website, which is supaflyfpv.com, you will find all of the options to purchase this frame. They are shipped from the UK, packaged by Steven with all care and attention. And you also have all of the accessory options, like the motors, the Bando kit, and the TPU camera mounts, which Steven does specifically for this frame. Retail price at the moment for the basic steel option is £49.99. That is £50. That is more or less about $70 at this moment, I think, which puts it, the price bracket, a bit lower than premium, but I can guarantee you that you are getting a premium frame. You are getting a super strong frame that has been designed with a lot of care and attention in the UK, that has been cut with extreme precision. One of the things to actually note on this new frame is that it is super smooth. I mean, they have broken the edges on the carbon. There's nothing to actually cut you, unlike some other suppliers. When you get the carbon out, it's all dusty and the edges are super sharp. No, these have all been broken down, and that just goes to show the amount of detail and care that goes into this. When Steven did say that he was going to send this to me, he did say that he was inspecting the batch that arrived to make sure that everything was in perfect order. Okay, and in the interest of full disclosure, no, I did not get this for free. I did get a discount, but all of my gear that I get from supaflyfpv.com has been purchased with my own money, and this is purely my honest opinion on this quadcopter frame. So, with that said, you can now go to supaflyfpv.com, purchase your own, and see if everyone is putting their money where their mouth is. This is a premium build frame at a super price with spectacular performance. With performance on par with any of the more expensive premium frames that are coming out that are extremely similar to this one. Don't be fooled. This one was here first. Thank you very much.